In 1918, a shadow stalked the streets of New Orleans. Not a ghost, but something just as terrifying. Families were butchered in their beds, homes left untouched except for a single weapon, an axe. The killer was never caught, but then came the letter from someone claiming to be a demon from hell, demanding one thing: that the city play jazz or face his wrath. This is the untold story of the Axman of New Orleans and the curse that still echoes through the streets today. The attacker was never identified, and all the murders remained unsolved. Hello to all my fellow creepy little weirdos. My name is Christina, and I will be your tour guide through the realms of the unexplained, the paranormal, and the just plain weird. Welcome to Horror, History, and Hauntings. In the thick, humid summer of 1918, New Orleans pulsed with an eerie energy. Jazz spilled into the night air from smoke-filled clubs, mingling with the scent of the magnolias and the stench of poverty. It was a city caught between beauty and decay, where shadows seemed to stretch a little longer after sunset, and whispers carried further on the wind. And then one night, the city awoke to something far darker than the ghosts of its past. On May 23, 1918, the first scream shattered the quiet of the modest Italian grocery in the 7th Ward. By the time neighbors rushed in, groggy and confused, it was too late. Joseph Maggio and his wife Catherine lay in pools of their own blood. Their skulls had been cracked open with monstrous force. A razor had been used to slit their throats while they slept, and then the killer had returned with an axe, one he found in their kitchen. The scene was not just gruesome, it was ritualistic. No valuables were stolen, just the eerie silence of the dead and the heavy weight of violence that felt personal. The people of New Orleans had seen their fair share of violence, but this was something else. Within days, the whispers began. A madman was on the loose, a butcher with no pattern and no mercy. Some claimed they saw shadows slipping down back alleys. Others swore they heard footsteps in the rooftops at night, or caught glimpses of a figure disappearing into the mist that rolled in from the Mississippi. Newspapers dubbed him the Axman, but his legend spread faster than the facts. He didn't kill for money, he left no evidence of who he was or what his motives could be, and he only used weapons found at the scene, usually an axe, occasionally a razor, sometimes both. He targeted Italian immigrants, many of them grocers, stirring rumors of mafia ties or vendettas, but nothing ever quite fit. To understand the Axeman, one must understand the city he haunted. New Orleans in 1918 was a city on the edge. The First World War had drained resources and spirits. Soldiers left home and didn't come back. Fear of German spies and foreign saboteurs poisoned the public mood. Immigrants, especially Italians and Sicilians, were often treated with suspicion and resentment. Jim Crow laws strangled Black communities, and segregation created pressure cookers of tension and silence. Disease lingered in the swampy air, and even nature itself seemed angry. The Spanish flu was on the rise. People were dying in their homes without warning, sometimes within hours. The Axeman's murders didn't happen in isolation. They were embedded in this atmosphere of dread and unrest. To some, he was a lunatic. To others, he was a vengeful incarnate, or something more ancient, more mythic. An avenging spirit from the city's voodoo-soaked underbelly. There were whispers of a cursed axe passed from killer to killer. Or perhaps the tool had absorbed something, a darkness from the blood it spilled. His victims were many, but the Maggios were the first to make headlines. Then came Louis Bessumer and Harriet Lowe, attacked in the back room of another grocery store on June 27, 1918. Located at the corner of Giardino's and La Harpe Streets, Bessumer survived with a fractured skull. Lowe lingered for weeks, slipping in and out of lucidity before dying after surgery. She claimed Besummer was a German spy, a strange accusation that only fueled wild theories. The weapon, a hatchet, found in the bathroom. Then came Anna Schneider, attacked in her own home while heavily pregnant on August 5th, 1918. 28-year-old Anna survived. Her baby girl, born days later, lived too, but others weren't so lucky. On August 10th, 1918, Joseph Romano, another Italian grocer, was struck in the head while sleeping beside his nieces. He died 2 days later. His killer had vanished, leaving only the sharp metallic scent of blood behind. Each scene was a message, each body a warning. And always the axe, found resting near the crime scene, sometimes clean, sometimes not. It was the killer's calling card, his signature in blood and steel. As the bodies piled up, so did the questions. Was the Axman a ghost in human skin? A madman driven by hatred? Or was he something older, something born of the city's sins, come to claim a blood tide? One thing was certain, no lock could keep him out, no wall could keep him away, and no one, no matter high or low, was truly safe once the shadow of the Axeman passed over their home. The streets of New Orleans no longer danced after sundown. By the fall of 1918, the city that once swayed to the rhythm of jazz and clattered with the late-night footsteps had turned inward. Shutters were bolted. Shops that once bustled with life locked their doors before dusk. Grocers, especially those of Italian descent, whispered prayers as they extinguished their lanterns at night, wondering if their homes would be next. Children were kept from playing outside, and even the boldest men walked with their eyes over their shoulders. The city had grown quiet, not peacefully so, but with a silence pregnant with fear. New Orleans teetered on the edge of hysteria. Rumors swirled like cigarette smoke in cafe corners. Churches held special masses. A few shopkeepers boarded up their businesses entirely, fleeing to the countryside. One family kept a jazz record playing on a Victrola at all hours, convinced the music warded him off like holy water. Fear became ritual. The police, meanwhile, groped blindly through the dark. Detectives from the NOPD canvassed neighborhoods, questioned witnesses, and rounded up the usual suspects: German immigrants, vagrants, and known criminals. But nothing stuck. No evidence that led anywhere. The killer seemed to dissolve into the mist after every attack, leaving behind only bloodstains and broken families. Then came the letter. Published on March 14, 1919, it was addressed to the esteemed mortal of New Orleans. The Times-Picayune printed it in full. The city held its breath as they read. Hell, March 13, 1919. Esteemed mortal. They have never seen me, for I am invisible. Even as the ether that surrounds your earth, I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and you foolish police call the Axman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be, and I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell the police to be careful not to rile me. Of course, I am a reasonable spirit. I have took no offense to the way they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid as to not only amuse me, but His Satanic Majesty, Francis Joseph, etc. But tell them to beware. Let them not try to discover what I am, for it is better that they were never born than to incur the wrath of the Axeman. I don't think there is any need of such a warning, for I feel sure that the police will always dodge me, as they have in the past. They are wise and know how to keep away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleanians think of me as a most horrible murderer, which I am, but I could be much worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night, At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time, on next Tuesday night, I'm going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I'm going to make a little proposition for you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well, then so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is some of you people who do not jazz it out on that specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and it is about time to leave your earthly home, I will cease my discourse, hoping that thou wilt publish this, that it may go well with thee. I have been, am, and will be the worst spirit that ever existed, either in fact or realm of fantasy. The Axman. The city exploded into sound that night. Every club, every parlor, every cramped shotgun house was alive with ragtime and horns. That night, no one died. Had the letter worked? Was it even from the Axeman at all? The tone was theatrical, almost mocking. Some said it sounded like someone playing a cruel joke. Others believed it was a ploy to sell newspapers or a musician's stunt to boost business. Yet others were sure it was the voice of the devil himself. The police were at a loss. They could not trace the letter. The envelope had no return address. It had simply appeared, like a curse slid under the city's doorstep. Some whispered that the killer had never been human. He moved too quietly, too cleverly. He struck with too much force, yet too little chaos. Some of the city's spiritualists claimed he was a Loa, gone rogue, a malevolent entity of vengeance. Others said the axe itself had become cursed through repeated use, taking control of whoever held it, forcing them to kill. The people didn't know what to believe anymore, and perhaps that was the Axeman's greatest triumph. He hadn't just killed people, he had infected the city. He turned neighbor against neighbor, filled each dark corner with imagined eyes, and transformed ordinary sounds like a creaking floorboard, a sudden knock, into omens of death. By late 1919, the attack stopped as mysteriously as they'd begun. The Axman vanished as mysteriously as he had come, leaving New Orleans to clutch at shadows. With no arrests, no confessions, and no motive ever established, the case twisted into something larger than murder. It became a legend. But behind the newspaper clippings and haunted whispers, there were names, real people who fell under suspicion, their lives forever marked by proximity to horror. One of the main suspects was Joseph Mumphrey, a name tangled in crime and coincidence. He was a known figure in the city's Italian underworld, a con man and petty extortionist with alleged ties to a secret society known as the Black Hand, a group blamed for threatening local grocers for protection money. When Esther Albano, the widow of one of the final Axman victims, shot Mumphrey to death in Los Angeles in December of 1921, she claimed he had murdered her husband and destroyed her life. The newspapers ran with it. Some declared the mystery solved, but the evidence was thin. Mumphrey had never been arrested for any of the Axeman murders. He had no documented presence in New Orleans at the time of the earliest attacks. His death closed no cases. If he had been the Axeman, he took that secret to the grave. Another figure whispered about was Frank Doc Mumphrey, possibly the same man as Joseph Mumphrey or a relative. Some say that Mumphrey's jazz business, previously struggling, was noted by many to the community as seeming to do unusually good business once the city was compelled by threat of violence to hire jazz bands and play jazz records. In some versions of the story, he was involved in spiritualism, seances, and occult rituals. A few claimed he practiced dark arts or even dabbled in necromancy. These stories often blurred into myth, suggesting that whoever the Axman was, he had one foot in the physical world and the other in something darker. But none of them could be definitively tied to the crimes. No eyewitnesses ever gave a clear description. No weapon was ever traced to a suspect. The killer left no fingerprints, almost unheard of even in those days. Investigators were left with corpses, blood, and broken locks. Some said the axe itself was cursed, passed unknowingly from household to household, that it took hold of its wielder like a parasite, whispering its own bloody will. Those who believed in such things said it was forged with intent, a weapon baptized in hate and used in sacrifice, absorbing evil with every life it claimed. Superstition ran rampant. Every failed lead, every dead end only deepened the mystery. Police struggled not just against a killer, but against something intangible, an atmosphere, a myth that consumed logic. Every time they came close to a theory, it unraveled. Files were misplaced, witnesses changed their stories, officers left the force. It was as if something wanted the Axeman to remain hidden. Many wondered, was the curse real? Forensic science in 1918 was crude at best. Crime scenes were often trampled by onlookers and officers. The blood analysis was primitive. Fingerprint cataloging was incomplete, and yet the Axeman's precision was uncanny. He left behind no useful evidence, not a hair, not a shred of clothing. It was as if he walked through walls, and many believed he did. Some New Orleanians, steeped in the city's spiritual traditions, spoke of shadows that walk, of spirits who borrowed flesh. Over the decades, the theories multiplied. Some believed the Axeman was a war veteran, broken by the horrors of trench warfare, unable to separate nightmares from waking life. Others insisted he was a religious zealot, punishing those he saw as sinners or corrupt. Some saw patterns in the music, suggesting he was a failed musician, lashing out at those who had turned their backs on jazz. Still others believed in something older, a force perhaps, a spirit of vengeance born from the city's long, bloodied history of slavery, oppression, and corruption. New Orleans was a place where the line between the living and the dead was already thin. Maybe something crossed over and found a vessel. There were even those who believed that the Axeman was never one person, that the murders were committed by different hands, each taken over by the same force, an illness, not of the body, but of the mind, a kind of possession, passing like a dark gospel from killer to killer. This would explain the subtle differences in attacks, the slight change in force, the varying degrees of brutality, the randomness, but also the ritual. The Axeman has become the fixture in the haunted mythology of New Orleans. He is carved in the same cultural wood as voodoo queens, haunted mansions, and the restless dead of St. Louis Cemetery. But his story has traveled far beyond Louisiana's borders. In books, the Axeman is portrayed as everything from a deranged lunatic to a supernatural avenger. In television, his shadow darkens screens, most notably in American Horror Story Coven, where he appeared as a suave, ghostly killer seducing witches with jazz and bloodshed. Documentaries and podcasts dissect every known fact, every whisper of a theory, every crack in the case file, trying to untangle the history from the horror. But every retelling seems to circle back to the same question. Was he just a man? Some say yes, a killer fueled by hate, madness, or vengeance, perhaps protected by social unrest or police incompetence. Others insist there was something more, something ancient, something unnatural. The letter he wrote, mocking the living from the perspective of the spirit in hell, still rattles readers to this day. Who would write such a thing, and why? Many believe that no man could have eluded justice so cleanly, that no ordinary criminal could move through locked doors in tight-knit communities without being seen, that no rational mind would taunt a city with music and murder. The line between fact and folklore has blurred. The Axeman now exists in the strange space where myth and memory intertwine, a place New Orleans knows all too well. Even after more than a century, the case remains unsolved. No arrests, no convictions, no clear motive, just a trail of bodies, a city haunted, and a killer who disappeared into smoke. Detectives, historians, and armchair sleuths continue to search, hoping that some overlooked detail, some newly digitized document might offer a key to the truth. But maybe, just maybe, that truth was never meant to be found. Or perhaps he waits still, behind the next corner, in the rhythm of the next jazz song. And so New Orleans played. From smoky bars to parlor rooms, from battered phonographs to trembling fingers on upright pianos, jazz swelled and danced through the night like a living thing. It was a city-wide offering, not of fear, but of defiance. The music was both a shield and a spell, an act of faith that melody could keep death at bay. Somewhere in the dim hum of that night, a song was born. The mysterious Axman's Jazz. Don't Scare Me, Papa was a ragtime tune composed by Joseph Davila, playful, upbeat, and tinged with irony. It quickly became a symbol of the era. Its lyrics, while light on the surface, echoed the nervous laughter of a city that refused to surrender to fear. Mama, Mama, don't you go out tonight. Papa's gonna play some jazz to make things right. For many, it was more than a song. It was a talisman. A way to take back control in a world where death had no face, no name, and no reason. Though the rhythm of brass and the swing of piano keys, New Orleans looked the Axeman in the eye and played on. And this, perhaps, is the city's greatest weapon. Not its law enforcement, not its legends, but its music. Jazz became a kind of armor against the darkness, a pulsing, defiant rhythm that said, "We will not be silenced." Today, we still live with the fear of the unknown. Motiveless violence leaves communities shattered. Modern crime, despite advances in forensics and psychology, often echoes the same hollow chill that the Axeman cast over 1919. We build cameras into our doorbells, lock our homes with smart tech, and obsessively watch true crime documentaries. But still, evil slips through, and sometimes it leaves no trace. So if you find yourself in New Orleans on a warm, uneasy night, and the wind carries a strange tune through the live oaks, you might ask yourself, is it just music? Or is it a warning? And the curse? It might still be listening. Well, if you enjoyed this video, please show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It would really mean the world to me. Also, you might like this other video about another weird but true story, or this playlist on my channel. And as always, thank you for watching. Good night and sweet dreams. Bye-bye.